functional units what we have in the computer organization. So what does the functional unit mean? Which means what are the key important elements we have to use in the computer. Let us consider that and look into it. Which means, so in this lecture, we are trying to understand the 5 important fundamental functionalities what has to be there on a computer. Let us go into the details. Look at this diagram. We can able to understand functional units. So on the left side we have input block and output block. Together we call it as IO block. In the center we have a memory block. This memory block will also have partitions of ALU, control unit along with the memory block. Alright, if you look into the details here, the computer mainly consists of 5 functional independent units: input, output, memory, arithmetic and logic unit, and control units. So this control and ALU part will be there with the processor, and input output block is termed as IO block. If you look at this diagram, which we can able to clearly see the 5 functional units of the computers, and we can also see its physical locations in the computer. And if you look forward, the input unit accepts the digital information from the user with the help of input device. The input devices, let us say keyboard, mouse, and microphone, etc. After receiving the information from the input unit, it will store by itself, or it can pass on that to the memory at the later stage. Let us say if immediately if you want to use it, we may be processed by using arithmetical unit or logical unit, and we can able to perform the desired operation on it. And for example, if a program stored in the memory decides the processing steps, and the processed output is sent to the user with the help of output devices, or it is stored in the memory for later references. So all these things what we discuss now has to coordinate each other, and further has to be controlled such that the control unit can able to function effectively. If you see the functional units here, these functional units will have 5 functionalities as we discussed here: input, memory, ALU, output, and control signals. And this input unit is going to accept the information which is coded form from the humans using keyboard or any other electronic devices which will be acting as an input device for communicating over digital communications. And after the information is received by the computer, it can be processed immediately or in a later stage by using the ALU. Alright, so let us see now the further details what exactly these functional units we are going to do. Once we get these results, the arithmetical and logical unit in conjunction with the control unit is also known as CPU. So that is going to process that results and send back to the outside world with the output unit. It's very simple. We got a data through keyboard or through joystick or mouse, any of the form. So that input is being processed, and after processed, finally the results obtained from the processing will be communicated to the outside world through output unit. So all of these actions what this functional units are performing have been coordinated by control unit. This control unit is going to function effectively, where to stop and where to end and where to start, all that. And the arithmetical and logical circuits in conjunction with the main control circuits are referred as the processor, whereas the input and output equipment is oftenly collectively referred as IO block. The collective unit of this input output is known as a IO block. And to move on to the information handled by the computer, the information can be either an instruction or can be a data. Information can be either be instruction or it can be a data. So let us see the information handled by the computer, what information it will be handling. Let us look at that. The first point here is the instructions uh, followed by the computer is to execute program sequence of instructions. We need to execute the sequence of instructions. So this instruction is also termed as machine instructions, which are explicit command, which means when we are trying to transfer the information from one computer to other or one device to other, these IO devices will be helpful for us. When you are trying to transmit a data, so it will be transmitted through the IO blocks. So in this case, we're going to use arithmetical and logical operations will be performed when you are trying to perform an IO data. So this has been done. Further, we know that a program is a list of instructions which will perform a task. Let us say we have set of instructions, n number of instructions. We have that complete bunch of instructions comes to a program. These programs were stored in the memory, as we all know that. So the processor is going to helpful for fetching the data from the instructions and also from the memory from one to another, which means it will be processed either from memory to IOs or IO to memory. So this part will be taken care by the processor, and we are able to perform the desired operation. Let us say you want to add two numbers. The processor has to fetch the data of the two numbers. Let us say, for example, A and B. We want to add A plus B. So the processor has to fetch the data of A from the memory and also has to fetch the data of B from the memory, and it has to perform the addition operation. And what is the desired output what we have got, that will be displayed in the subsequent session. So it's like that. And the computer is going to be controlled by the second, the stored program, which is going to be expected for possible external interruption by an operation or by an IO device connected to it. Finally, we can able to understand from this the data and numbers and characters that are used as operands by the instructions. So data are also stored in the memory. And to take an example, now most present day hardware employees use digital circuits that have only two stable states. Either we have on state or we have off state. In this scenario, each number or a character can be encoded in a binary form either as two possible ways. It can be a 0 or it can be a 1. Any one of this, the encoded data will be processed. Now, let us look at the input unit. What are the input units we have? The computer is going to accept the data in the form of input unit. The input units, say for example, I'll tell you some names. Can you identify the input devices in that? Let us say keyboard. It's input or output? Keyboard. It's an input device. And mouse. This is also an input device. And look at trackball. That also will be an input device. Joystick. It's an input device. And through stylus, we have a flat surface that will be a table or a digitizer. It's an input device. Scanner. It's an input device. So all of them will act like an input device. Say for example, to make it short, mouse, joystick, trackball, touchpad, phone, and camera. So all these are the input devices. So what about the memory unit? The memory unit is being useful for us in storing the programs and data. Which type of storage we have? It can be of primary storage or it can be a secondary storage. So this memory primarily uses two types of memory devices which are used from a memory unit, primary storage device and secondary storage device. That the primary storage device, commonly called as main memory, it is a faster memory used in the storage of programs and active data. The data currently which is in process is called as an active data. And the main memory is your semiconductor memory. In that case, it consists of a larger number of semiconductor storage cells called as each capable of storing one bit of information. So these cells are read or written by the central processing unit in a group of fixed size called as word. So the fixed size length of the word can be 16, 32, or 64 bits. So let us continue that memory unit in the next session.